Hello, everybody. My name's Andrew. Welcome back to Music Theory Logic. Today is going to be another music theory breakdown, and today's song is going to be the hit from late in 2020, Good Days by SZA. Let's go ahead into the Logic session. So here we are in Logic Pro. If you haven't seen one of these before, I basically recreate the instrumental to the best of my ability in a reasonable amount of time, making sure I get the notes right so that I can show you where those notes come from and explain some scales and chords or some music theory. But I do not play the originals because I do not have the rights to the originals, and I don't want to get the video banned because I want these to live on so people can keep learning from them. So again, this isn't going to be sonically totally accurate to the song, but hopefully you think it gives you the same vibes. If you haven't heard the song, you should pause this right now and go listen to Good Days by SZA. Here is my rendition. Cool. So there it is. Hopefully you enjoyed that enough to continue watching. So let's talk about where these notes come from. So this song is in the key of E major. E major has four accidentals or four sharps. They are F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp in the order of the circle of the fifths. Or they are these four notes. Those are black keys. Everything else is a white key. The notes in the scale are E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. It sounds like this. Perfect. I'm just going to throw on a little mastering so that I can get some of these sections a little bit louder. Cool. So nothing fancy. That is a basic major scale, again in the key of E major. If you wanted an easy way to find those notes, you could draw all the white keys from C to C. That's our basic major scale. As I talk about in my music theory textbook linked below, you could just drag that up to E, and all of a sudden we have all the notes from E major. And that's where these chords come from. So let's hear this basic chord progression, and then I'll tell you what the chords are called and how they relate to the scale I just played. Cool. So that first chord is a major 1 chord. That's an E major. The next chord is a G sharp minor 7th. That is a 3 chord with regards to the key of E major. Then we get a C sharp minor 7. That's a minor 6. And then finally, we get a dominant, a 5 chord. That is a B major in the key of E major. Cool. So that covers the chords. One of the really interesting parts of the song, and the reason I wanted to do this song, is I thought it has like a beautiful demonstration of delay. So the delay that I have, let's start talking about the original. So first of all, I would describe this Good Days instrumental as being somewhat ambient, very ethereal. It's really vibey for that reason, and it's also very like sustained or slow building. So let's talk about how they accomplish that. So first of all, the arpeggio, and arpeggio, if you haven't heard that word before, is a broken chord. It's kind of like a broken chord. This part is an arpeggio meets a melody, so most of these notes come from the harmony that we're playing. We get the notes D sharp, C sharp, B, and E. Now, E and B are in our one chord. This is a 6 that's not in our chord, but it's in our scale. And then finally, this up here, this D sharp, that actually makes this harmony more of like a major 7, which again adds to the jazzy feel of it. Really pretty arpeggio. That then essentially repeats, but some notes change. The chord is a C sharp minor 7, and these are all literally arpeggio tones of it. The chord is C sharp, E, G sharp, and B, and we're doing C sharp, G sharp, B, and E. So again, all the same notes from that chord. The minor, the 6, I guess the minor 6, 7th chord. Cool. So then that continues, except the low end, the low notes go to C sharp. The last two measures, we're going C sharp to D sharp, and back. The harmony happening at that time is the minor 6, 7 chord. Over here, the notes are really coming from our minor 6, 7th chord, but the harmony that we end up getting a little bit later in the song, when it's more noticeable, is that minor 3 chord I mentioned. And then finally, we get basically the same arpeggio, only the top note goes back to the 7, the note we started on from our scale. Let's hear that on its own. I'm going to turn off the delay, and then I'll talk about the delay a little bit. So let's play this for you. Now, obviously, that sounds like way different than the song, and the song would sound also way different if it didn't have the delay. So what is delay? Delay is, you could basically think of it as an echo effect. So delays can be defined in terms of milliseconds, literal speed, or they can be tied to the host tempo and then have rhythms, which are still millisecond speeds, but they're more linked to the actual tempo that we're at in the song. This has a quarter note triplet delay sound. It's the feedback is pretty loud. I have it here at 61 in my Waves H delay. The dry wet, it's pretty loud, the delay signal. And then that delay is filtered, primarily the top end and that low end on the mud. And when we add the delay, I'll toggle it on here. You'll notice this fills out like a ton. Cool. So what's really happening is every note that's playing is playing again when it delays on that quarter triplet rhythm, and other notes are happening. So we hear the previous note repeating with the next notes, and that creates sort of a harmony, a chord sound. Again, very, very spacey, really fun effect. All you have to do is create an arpeggio. You could have it be a pretty slow arpeggio, and then tie it to a delay and make the delay pretty prominent. If you're using an arpeggio, that effect will really work because when those notes happen at the same time, they're going to sound like a chord, which again is the arpeggio. It's a broken chord. Cool. Then we get some synth sound effects in the beginning. The one I chose wasn't quite correct, but that is Arturia instruments. Cool. Then I have an electric piano and a bunch of other pads playing the chords. Chord progression I already showed you. That's the E minor, G sharp minor 7, C sharp minor 7, B major, which is a 1, 3, 6, 5 chord progression in the key of E. We get a secondary melody that also sounds like a plucked guitar. It's doing this climbing sound. It's a little bit more prominent in the mix. It's going from that 7th note that we talked about, up to basically the second note from our scale, to our third note from the scale, up to the 6. Then it goes back to the 5, and finally up to the 7. Together, all together, we'll look at the melody and listen. It's almost like that top, the first channel I talked about, is creating the like ambient space. It has the harmony of the chord. It sounds like a guitar, but it's happening. It's really interesting the way it attacks. It's some like ear candy. It's hard to totally know what's going on unless you're familiar with delay, and even then, it's hard to decipher when you're hearing the full mix. Cool. Then basically after 8 bars, we get our drum start, and so does SZA starts singing. The drum pattern is pretty straightforward. We're halftime. We're at 121 beats per minute, so this is a pretty slow groove to be halftime. The kick drum is kind of doing this bump bump heartbeat sound. It's happening on the first beat of every 16 bars, and then the rest of the 3 it hits on the last 8th note and back on the 1. So when we hear that, we get the kick and then kick. Again, it's like a heartbeat. That's how I think of it. We get some cymbal action, not too much interesting happening, except right here we get some 8th note triplets on the cymbals. It really stands out in the track. It gives it, again, some quirk or some weirdness to it. And what's interesting about that is it's the same rhythm that the delay is tied to. So this song has a real triplet sort of feel to it, which makes it feel like we're in like 12/8. So 3 triplet 8th notes tied to every quarter note. 3 times 4 is 12. That covers all of our instruments. And then after a 16-bar verse, this sort of mini hook / verse 2 comes in. And we get our bass line, and this bass line, everything else is looping. That's what I meant by like through composed. It's like the instrumental starts and things keep getting added to it. It's almost like the scene grows around this character that's there from the beginning. It's not like there's section 1, section 2, and there's a lot of change happening. It's more like how things enter provide the interesting elements. So our bass line is using the same rhythm as the kick drum. Super common. It's on the last 8th note and the first one. It's holding out. We're doing the 1 note, so different than the melody, but the root note of our chord. We're doing the root note of the second chord. That's our G sharp minor. It happens halfway through, so it kind of creates a suspension sound, suspended harmony. So the E holds halfway through the next measure when the chord is changed. We go up to this 6th note. We are playing the 6th minor 7 this whole time, so it's basically a root note bass line. And then finally we do this bass fill at the end of the first group of 4 measures. We get B up to C sharp. That's 5 5 6 from the scale. All of that basically repeats, except at the end we get 4 5 in the bass line from the scale, or the notes A, B. This entire 8-bar sequence of bass line repeats, so that's sort of the bass pattern. Now there's a really cool bridge of the song. Again, I encourage you to go check it out. It's a pan flute solo. I did not do that for this video because I wanted to keep it as slim as possible. So hopefully you found this helpful. I'm going to play the instrumental one more time, and then I will say farewell. Here we go. This is my rendition of Good Days by SZA. no bass this whole time. It's really interesting. But when the bass comes in, it makes it that much more impactful. Notice that up here. Bass repeats. It's really pretty instrumental. I really like the song. It's super unique. It has a real a vibe to it. So thank you, SZA, and the whole team that made this track. Hopefully everybody found this helpful. If you found this video helpful, you would help me out a lot by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell for notifications so that you know when I make one of these videos next. So far, we're putting out music theory breakdowns every Friday, so be sure to tune back next Friday if you enjoyed this, or feel free to look at the playlist and check out some of the videos or songs we've already covered. Once again, my name's Andrew. I'll link to my music below and some of my other materials, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Cheers, and keep making music.